Peace be upon you all. And hello, my name is WAFIQAH ZUBAIR, and I recently graduated from Harmony Science Academy EULESS, and I will be attending Harvard University this fall. I'm considering a biomedical engineering concentration, and I'm also on the pre-med track. I joined AMWPA last summer to help out with the master drive, as well as the mentoring program, and I've been a part ever since. So let's start with a recitation of a surah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. So these are the first 5 verses of Surah Al-Alaq, and here's the meaning. Read, O Prophet, in the name of your Lord who created humans from a clinging clot. Read, and your Lord is the most generous, who taught by the pen, taught humanity what they knew not. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri, wa yassir li amri, wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbi zidni ilma, Rabbi zidni ilma. So welcome everyone to our SAT prep workshop. First, I'll have the speakers introduce themselves. Can you start with Abdullah?
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My name is Abdullah Khan. I'm a rising freshman at UTD and graduated from Harmony Science Academy last year. I'm planning to major in neuroscience, and I am pursuing a pre-med track, inshallah.
Thank you. Can we have ASIYAH introduce herself next?
Hi, my name is ASIYAH JILAN. I just graduated from Harmony Science Academy. I'm an experienced writer, and I write and edit for the magazine Muslim Youth Musings. And I'm entering UT Dallas as a freshman, majoring in computer science.
Thank you. Next, we'll have OSMAN.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm OSMAN ABDALLA. I'm currently a senior at Harmony Science Academy in EULESS. And when I go to college, I plan to major in computer science.
All right, thank you, everyone. So before we get started on the topic, we'll go over what AMWPA is and its mission. So AMWPA is a nonprofit organization founded in 2008. It consists of a group of female Muslim physicians, dentists, and allied health professionals. AMWPA promotes preventative medicine in the community, and their vision is to promote the health, welfare, and the education of women. AMWPA has been very active during the pandemic by providing masks throughout the Metroplex and educating the community. They've also provided frontline workers meals and scholarships to Muslim female students pursuing medicine. So AMWPA's mission is to improve the condition of women's health, provide a platform for Muslim women in medicine, and raise awareness of issues regarding community welfare. And they do this using several methods. They pursue this by providing health education and medical resources for women. They advance awareness of issues relating to women's welfare and community health, and they provide resources for Muslim women pursuing medicine, education, and leadership roles. So now let's get into SAT, ACT. First, we'll have OSMAN explain if you should take it.
So as you might know, a lot of colleges are recently saying SAT is not mandatory, which means that you don't have to take it to apply to the college. But you should still take it because, first of all, it maximizes your chances of scholarships. And what this means is when you're applying for scholarships, if you don't have the SAT, you're just going to look like another NPC who doesn't take the SAT. So instead, it differentiates you from other students when you take the SAT. So a college will see, oh, this person has a qualified GPA, a high academic merit, but they also have SAT, which sets them aside from other students. So you should still take it. And even though a lot of colleges don't require it, there are still some colleges which still require it. So you should just take it anyways, just to make sure. SAT breakdown. So first, the first section is reading, and you have 65 minutes for reading with 52 questions. So you're going to take a bit more than a minute per question. And what reading is all about is you see a passage and then you answer questions based on the passage. So the question would be something like, what is the plot? What is the questions like those relating to the second bit of the SAT is writing in language. That takes 35 minutes for 44 questions, so a bit less than this. So you're gonna have to pace yourself a bit faster. There. And just to clarify, that is the English language, not Urdu. So you gotta make sure for that. So the next bit is math, no calculator, which is you have 25 minutes to do 20 questions. So you can pace yourself a bit more reasonably there. And that's just normal math questions ranging from algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2, just normal high school curriculum. And then math with calculator is just like math no calculator, but the key difference is the calculator. And it's a bit longer, so you have 55 minutes and 38 questions. So you have 87 seconds per question, which is a lot of time, so you can take your time there. And then finally, you have an essay, which is completely optional. So you don't have to take it, it won't affect your score. But if you do choose to take it, you have 50 minutes for one essay, and they'll just give you a prompt, just do the essay.
All right, thank you. So now we'll have SAT reading tips presented by ASIYAH.
So for SAT reading, there's always one right answer. So even if you don't know the answer, at least focus on the other answers and find out which one makes the most sense. So if there are answers that are too specific, too broad, too reverse, then you can eliminate those and try to find the one that makes the most sense. And don't let your biases influence you. The answer will be in the passage, not like what you think. So you can always find your answer in the passage using context. And experiment with different test-taking strategies. So for some people, the usual strategy of reading the passage and then answering questions might work. But for others, sometimes you might want to read the questions first and then read the passage. So while you're reading it, you can find the answers to the questions in the passage. Some people prefer to skim the passage first and then answer questions. So experiment and find out which strategy works best for you. For vocab questions, make sure to use context. If you don't know a word and they're asking you what the word means, maybe you can go back in the passage and look at the context that it's used in, and that can help you a lot. And for the dual passage, divide and conquer. So there will be a passage that is made up of two different passages and then a set of questions. So first, read the first passage, answer the questions correlated with that. Read the second passage, answer the questions with that, and then answer the questions that are asking about them together.
So those were the SAT reading tips. Next, we will have SAT writing tips. Take it away, Abdullah.
You're muted.
We can't hear you.
Sorry about that. So for SAT writing, this is one of the more easy sections on the SAT test, and that is because if you know the grammar rules, then you're going to do a good job. So one of the most common mistakes that people make on the test is not knowing their homophones. So things like there, and there, know when to use them and which one is correct in a scenario. You want to know the exceptions to certain rules. These don't pop up as regularly, but you should still know these. So for example, everyone is singular. If there are two answers that you see and you think they're correct, then you should pick the more concise one. So if two answers are saying the exact same thing, but one has more words, you want to use the one that has less words. Check for consistency. So this means subject, verb agreement, verb forms, and make sure you know your singular plurals. You don't want to have a singular word at the start of the sentence and then a plural at the end. No change can be the answer. So a lot of times I see students staying away from the no change answer just because.
How can I get the certificates?
the no change answer because they're scared of putting it. But this is actually not okay because this can always be the answer. So try reading the sentence with every answer choice. This is another tip that I can tell you has worked for me. If you read the sentence with every answer choice, then sometimes you can play it by ear and see which one sounds best.
So that was SAT writing. Now we'll go over SAT math tips with Osman.
So SAT math is a bit different from SAT reading and writing because it requires you to really critically think. So the first tip here is to learn shortcuts. As an example on the left there, so the question asks if the equations above are true, which of the following is the value of y plus z? And notice it doesn't just ask for any variable, it asks for specifically y plus z. So that's a clue that you can use a shortcut there. So if you look at the question, you could just do the normal way of systems of equations, which is long, boring, and slow, or you could just realize that you could subtract the first equation by the second equation, and then you have y plus z, which is the answer. So just little tricks like that makes you go faster. And the second tip here is to work backwards. So this only really applies if you cannot do the question, just have no idea how to do the question. You could just plug in all the answers back into the equation and just see which one works. So if like one of the answers is 12, you could plug in x as 12, and if it works, then you're chilling. But this next one is more of a common sense thing, right? So if it doesn't make sense, it's probably wrong. So for example, if the question asks, what height is the tennis ball at some point, and one of the answers is negative, you can just cross it out, easy elimination. And then this next one is very important. You want to check what the question is asking for. We can put this back on the example on the left, because the question isn't asking for what is the value of x, what is the value of y, what is the value of z. It's asking precisely for what is y plus z. And I see a lot of the time people just find out the variables and just put one of them as the answer without reading what the actual question is. So you could see what the question is asking for. It's usually at the end, okay? And another important thing is to pace yourself properly, because it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? So the questions go from easy to hard. So you don't want to take too much time in the beginning. You want to spread your time out evenly so you have enough time to finish the test. So the next one's pretty obvious, but you want to review the tested concepts. You don't want to be reviewing like biology for the math exam. You want to be reviewing stuff like geometry, algebra, and algebra 2. And lastly, you want to practice using your calculator, because using your calculator is one of the most important skills on the math calculator part, not so much on the math no calculator part, but because there's some questions that you can just like do easy if you know a calculator trick. So just brush up on those skills.
Yes, and I want to add one more thing. On the calculator, there is this thing called the equation solver. So there are approved calculators with equation solvers. So if you do have a system of linear equations and you think that you have the time and to do it in the calculator rather by hand, then put it through the equation solver and you'll get the right answer. Okay, so now we will go over our study methods for the tests, and we'll start with Abdullah.
For my SAT test, I studied by doing one chapter of College Panda workbooks every day for math and the writing section. What I really like about College Panda is that you get every single concept that's going to show up on the test, and they break it down separately, so you can really hone in on those concepts. And you want to make notes on topics you find particularly challenging and revisit them regularly. So if you find on your practice test you're making a lot of mistakes on geometry, for example, you want to go back to that workbook and revisit that geometry section until you get it right. The next thing is to take time practice tests bi-weekly to start off with, and as it gets closer to test date, you want to ramp those practice tests up. So what I like to do is I mark up wrong answers and try to solve them before looking at the right answer. So this means once you finish your test, you see what you got wrong, and you want to make sure that you figure out how you got that answer wrong before you look at the right answer. And then pay attention to recurrent question types, patterns, and get more comfortable with the test in general. So by following these study methods, alhamdulillah, I was able to get a 1490 on my SAT.
Okay, thank you, Abdullah. Jazakallah. Next, we will have Asiyah go over how she studied for SAT as well as the ACT.
So for my SAT, I took it 3 times, The first time I got a 1330 and the last time I got a 1480. So it was a big improvement. And on my ACT, I took it once and I got a 31. So for my SAT, one thing that I recommend is practicing SAT vocabulary because it shows up so much on the test. They'll ask some big words that you've never heard before. So practice that vocabulary and it'll help you so much. I also used Khan Academy for studying like fully. That was my main resource. And if you link Khan Academy with your College Board account, it'll give you practice questions based off what you missed on your PSAT and your previous SATs. So that is really helpful. And alternate which sections you focus on each day. Don't try to just cram in every section every day. Focus on math one day, reading one day, etc. And place the most effort on areas that you're weak in. So once you take in one SAT, if you're weak in a certain concept in math, practice that most. And before your SAT, I would say for sure take at least one practice SAT, whether it's online or in person, because even if you think you know everything, just taking that practice SAT will help you know if there's something you missed. And for the ACT, like I said, I took it only once, but I got a 31. And for that, I would say definitely study a wider range of math because SAT does cover more math ACT does cover more math concepts. As for the science on the ACT, it's all very basic knowledge. And there's a lot of graphs. There's no complex science on the ACT. So I wouldn't worry about studying like too much complex science facts, more just the simple things. And also for the ACT, definitely like the time management is a lot harder because it's faster paced. So if time management is something you already struggle with and you plan to take the ACT, definitely practice time management a lot more because that's one of the hardest things about the ACT, in my opinion.
Thank you, ASIYAH. Next, we'll have OSMAN go over his study method.
So the most crucial tip I'd say is don't be lazy. A lot of people ask, like, what's the best way to study? Like, how should I split my time? Should I do 20 minutes on weekdays, 40 minutes on weekends, whatever, yada, yada. But you don't need to be studying optimally. You just need to start studying and then you can be consistent with it. And as long as you're consistent with your studying, you'll make solid gains. So the second tip here is when reviewing questions, don't stop until you fully understand the solution. A lot of the time, I do see people studying, but they're studying like wrong. Like once they finish a question and they go to the solution, they just breeze over the solution. They just look at it once or twice and they don't try to understand the mistake and try to improve on it. And that's one of the most important thing to improving is trying to understand and improve on your mistakes. So, and then the last thing here is also really important is you don't want to memorize formulas and question types, okay? I see a lot of people try to be slick about it and say, oh, if the question says this specific wording, then they're asking for this and the answer is like C or something. But you don't want to be doing that because then the moment they switch up the words or they switch up the answer options, you're not going to be able to do the question. So then you're just screwed. So that's not good. So you want to understand the concepts instead. So even if they do switch up the essay, even if they do switch up the options, then you can still do it. So a lot of people already do this next one, but you don't need to use your brain, okay? You want to be a robot. You want to be like Detroit Become Human. You want to don't think for yourself. So like you want to read the passage and the answer directly comes from the passage, okay? You don't want to do any thinking in between. And this is really interesting on reading because sometimes the College Board asks you to infer, but you don't want to actually infer. They're lying to you. They're just straight up lying to you. You just want to base your answers completely off the passage. And with these tips, I was able to get a very high SAT score, mashallah. So.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan, Osman. So now I'll go over my study method. So I want to first say Khan Academy all the way. Not only is it a free resource, it's also official practice test questions from College Board itself. And like ASIYAH said, you can connect it to your College Board account so that the questions you missed on official tests, they will help you practice those concepts on Khan Academy. So I had a study plan for about a month or so. So every day I would do 20 practice questions and I would try to do it in the morning every day because that was the best way for me to stick to my schedule. And it was also quarantine, so I would do it as soon as I woke up. So these 20 questions are a way for you to consistently keep practicing and to keep seeing questions so that you familiarize yourself with all the different types of questions. And then every other weekend, I would take official tests. So on College Board, they have a section with the 10 official College Board SAT tests. And I would take these timed on Saturday mornings, and I would replicate exactly what would happen on, like, as much as possible, I'd replicate exactly what would happen on testing day. So after I take these tests, I would grade them and score them, and then I would look at what questions I guessed on and what questions I missed, and I would create cheat sheets for them. So let me show you pictures. So these are my cheat sheets, and I have different ones for different subjects. And for every question that I needed to work on, I would put the question, a summary of the actual question, and then I would put why I missed it. So like, what was I thinking to have picked this answer? And then the last bullet point is what I should do to not miss it the next time. If I were to take the question, if I were to take the same like passage or the same math problem again, what I should do or what I should know to not miss it. And then as testing day came closer, I would actually like look through these pages again. And it was a good refresher on what I needed to remember and what like I would easily forget the most. And alhamdulillah, with the study method, I was able to get 1580 on the SAT. For ACT, it was more of a second thought, like the test, I took it later in the summer. And so all the practice I did for the SAT helped with the ACT. What I did different was I just took a few practice tests and like ACT practice tests. And that way I could familiarize myself with the time limit as well as the math, like ASIYAH said. And so now here we have the ACT breakdown.
The ACT breakdown is a lot different to the SAT breakdown. As you can see, there's also an extra section that you don't see on the SAT. You have the science section. You have 45 minutes to do 75 questions on the English section, which is like the writing. You have 60 minutes to do 60 questions for math, 35 minutes for 40 questions on reading, 35 minutes for 40 questions on science, and you have an optional essay that would be one essay in 40 minutes. So as you can see, this ACT is a lot more fast-paced, and you have a lot less time to figure out the answers to questions. But these questions are also a lot more straightforward, which don't require you to think as much. And you can just, for example, the writing section, you can just look at the passage and the question will be right there, and same for reading.
Exactly, okay. So now we will compare ACT versus the SAT. So what do they have in common? They both have 4 sections. Both of them are timed tests. They both are worth the same to colleges and scholarship programs, technically, almost all of them. There are some like discrepancies, but usually they're worth the same. The difference is though, ACT has a science section while the SAT does not. ACT gives you less time per question because again, it's more fast-paced, less time in each section. ACT has more math concepts covered in its tests, while SAT covers less and has more data analysis questions. And then the ACT also has more straightforward reading questions. So like when you look in the passage, you're more easily able to find the answer to these ACT reading questions, and SAT makes you infer or like think a little bit more. So which one should I take, or which one should you take? So granted that you don't have any other requirements or preferences, I say you try both and pick one you find easier or the one that you did better on. So here are some ACT tips. Most SAT tips apply for the ACT. They're very similar tests. So studying the SAT material often does help increase your ACT score and vice versa. So for English, I would say, remember your 4 C's. So pick complete, consistent, concise, and clear answers. So you want your answers to, they shouldn't be fragmented. They should, like, it should make sense. Consistent. So like same verb, subject, verb agreement. And then singular, plural, like it should be the same. Concise. So if there's nothing else wrong with the 2 answer choices, pick the shortest one. And clear. It should make sense again. And for English, again, test out the answers in your head, like for the SAT. So try reading each answer choice within the context of the passage and see if it makes sense. For math, I would say brush up on your geometry and trigonometry. They ask way more questions like on the ACT than the SAT, so do that. And then also cross out extra info in questions. So something I've noticed in SAT questions for math is that they say a lot of extra information, and it kind of confuses you in your like while you're trying to solve the problem. So just physically cross it off and then go through the question and answer it. For reading, work faster because the time is very, very limited for the reading section. So you may have to skim the passage and skip questions you don't know to come back to later. So try to increase like your reading pace as well as how fast you answer the questions. For science, know these common terms. So independent variable versus dependent variable. Know your constants, know direct relationships and indirect relationships, and know how to apply these concepts to experiments and science passages, because they will definitely ask that. And then for science, please refer back to your passage and graphs. They usually don't test knowledge, like previous knowledge, like you don't need to know biology or like chemistry. They usually just give you the topics. It's kind of like reading again, but in like the science context. So go back to the passage and try to find your answer. So that was the end of ACT. Now we'll go over general test taking tips that work for both SAT and ACT by Abdullah.
Yeah, so on test day, you want to follow these rules in general. So you want to pick a letter of the day. What that means is it's test day and I'm nervous, and if I miss any questions or if I have to guess on any questions, I want to choose the same exact one. So for example, I'm choosing A for every question that I left behind or I have to guess on. This is because it statistically increases your chance of earning points on those questions. The next tip is process of elimination. Even on the questions that you think you know, you want to use process of elimination because it just makes everything so much more clear and easy for you. And if it comes down to two options, you're always going to have a 50-50 chance, which is a lot higher than a 25% chance if you did not process eliminate. Feel free to write in the test booklet. So write summary blurbs, annotate, take a highlighter, and you can highlight some words on the reading sections, and show your work on math problems. Always show your work on math problems so you can always refer back to it. If you have extra time at the end of the test, you can see what work you did to get to that answer as well. And this is not so much for the test date, but obviously when you're practicing and leading up to the test, you want to practice and familiarize. So you want to take those practice tests so that you have a good idea of the time management you need and the test format. So like what patterns you see coming up on the test, and inshallah, you'll do great.
And now here's some general advice to remember. Go ahead, Asiyah.
So first of all, prioritize your health and your mental health. Don't stress yourself out by like over cramming and beating yourself up over your scores. Like prioritize your mental health, and especially on testing day, don't like psych yourself out by stressing so much. Just clear your head and focus on the test. Don't let any other thoughts come in, because that is what will mess you up. And make sure to just take care of yourself, sleep, eat, exercise well, because refreshed body equals refreshed mind. You can study more effectively, you'll get the test done more effectively. If you have testing anxiety, like that is an actual thing. So find ways to cope with it, find what works best for you. Just don't let yourself get stressed out or psyched out. You can do this. And on testing day, organize your bag the night before, get to the testing site on time, like be timely, because if you're in a rush and you get there at the last minute, you're gonna be all stressed right before you start the test. Sleep well. Even if you have like terrible sleeping issues, just try to do what you can to get the most sleep, because that is also a very important factor. Eat a good breakfast, bring water, bring a snack, and yeah, good luck.
So to wrap up, we'll go over some resources.
Okay, so there's a lot of resources that you can use to become better at the SAT. And the most popular and common one is Khan Academy, because Alhamdulillah, Saul Khan is a blessing on this earth. So he has official questions and official videos too. So you can, if you're struggling with a solution, you can look at one of his videos. So, and the videos go very in depth. So you can see everything wrong with your solution. So it also connects to College Board, which means you can get like College Board released questions, which is cool. And so if you have a problem with the SAT, you better call Sal. Okay, so College Panda is a very good one because Abdullah Khan used it and he turned out really good on the SAT. So that's an example. And it gives explains and gives questions for every concept. So one by one, like it has every concept. You can have like trigonometry, normal geometry, algebra. So it can allow you to focus on each individual concept to become like better overall. And the practice tests are more challenging, so you're extra prepared. So that means the SAT will become very easy afterwards. So the next one is ACT.org. Okay, this is actually from the testing company, which is kind of corrupt, but it's corrupt for you. So use that to your advantage. And it's updated annually, which means like it puts the new tests back, so you can see what the new tests are and use that to study better. And then finally, you have schoolhouse.world. This is like for if everything else fails you, because it has it can connect you with free online tutors. So you can talk to someone one-on-one and explain your problems with SAT. And if you think you're a hotshot, then you can actually tutor yourself, which is very interesting. And that's about all.
Yes, exactly. And schoolhouse.world is also powered by Khan Academy. So definitely try that. They have many SAT, ACT tutors. And if you can't find anything specific that you want, then you can actually go to their request board and request for a specific topic that you need more help on. Okay, with that, we have finished our presentation. So if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. I'll go through them and read them, and we will take turns answering them. Okay, so the first question I see is, how much time do we have to study for the SAT for this year? Abdullah, do you want to take this question?
Yeah. So if you have to take the SAT this year, you want to do it as soon as possible. I'm assuming that you guys are, or whoever is asking the question is asking for a senior. So it's always best to get those college applications in with the SAT score before November. So if that's what you're aiming for, you want to do it before then.
Yes, and in like more general terms, you should really study and you should take time to study as much as you need it. So it's not like there is no set amount of time that you need to study. So you can study as little or as much or as long as you want. Okay, next question. What grade should students start studying for it? And over what time frame close to the test should students start practicing questions? Asiyah, can you please take this question?
Yeah, so I took my SAT at the end of 11th grade, my first one, and then I started studying, I'd say, beginning of 11th grade, so I personally took a long time to study. But I would say whenever you plan to take it, whether it's junior year, senior year, just plan out an amount of time before that you can study. And over what time frame to the test should students start practice questions? I would say it matters for you, like how you study. If you study fast, then that's different. But I think personally, like at least a few months, because you need to be able to study, take a practice test, like see what you need to brush up on, go back and do that. I would say it's a long process. And you don't have to like cram every single day. You can do like a little bit of studying every day for a long time, and that will help.
All right, next question. Can one retake the ACT? So yes, you can retake the ACT as many times as you want, just like the SAT. And the next question is where can we get sample tests from? OSMAN, do you want to take this question?
Collegeboard.org.
Also, if you want even more practice tests, you can see like Reddit. Reddit has a lot of links for practice tests. So you can type in SAT practice test Reddit and you'll find a link, or you'll find a page with a bunch of links, and you can just keep on taking them.
Thank you. So another question is, how many times can one take the SAT throughout the junior and senior year? You can take it as many times as you want, but remember that the SAT, like College Board, they schedule tests periodically. So sometimes it's like month after month, but sometimes you'll have like a 3-month break, and then that's the next test is like 3 months later. So make sure you're looking at the schedule and planning out accordingly when you plan on taking the test, so that you can sign up for a test that's actually scheduled. Okay, so similarly, the next question is, what month is usually the SAT taking place? So yeah, I can go more on this. The SAT, they have about 1 test or 2 tests every month, not every month, like for selected months. And there's also like SAT school day tests. So if you don't want to take it on Saturday, some schools offer it in school, like on a weekday. So that's also an option. Just go to the College Board website and you will see the schedule. Okay, next question. What is a good schedule to follow when studying for the SAT? And are there resources you suggest for PSAT?
Oh yeah, go ahead. Also.
Okay.
For SAT, like I said, I think you have to figure out what works best for you. If you're someone who can do a lot in a day, then do that. If you're someone who can do a little bit each day for a long period of time, do that. Like I said, just find out what works best for you. And like the best schedule for me is like taking a practice test during intervals, and then right after that, finding out what you need to improve on. And for PSAT, because you take PSAT in like 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, I think the best resource is like your previous PSATs. So find out what you messed up on those and then improve on those.
Abdullah, would you like to add anything?
No, yeah, so just SAT studying in general will always help with your PSAT and vice versa, because they're literally the same test almost. That's about it.
Yeah, and just to add for PSAT, I do recommend you study for it. College Board actually does have 2 official practice tests every year. And if you do well on the PSAT your junior year, then you have a chance for the National Merit Scholarship. And this can be more general, or it can give you like half rides, full rides to several state colleges. So please look into that and try to do good your junior year. Okay, next question. What year of high school is the best time to start practicing for the SAT, ACT? Any thoughts?
So I feel like SAT studying isn't exclusive to the SAT itself. Like basically all of middle and high school prepare you for the SAT itself. Like your math classes, it all builds a foundation. That's why it's so hard to like start studying when it's very close to the SAT, because you're missing out on years worth of information that you missed in class. So what's really important is to pay attention in class, no matter like what grade you're in, and then use the SAT as a bonus, use it as extra studying to do. Don't just say, I'm not going to pay attention in class and then study for the SAT. The SAT studying is something like extra that you should do on top of the foundation that is being built while you're in the classroom. So any year of high school is fine to start studying. Ideally, start studying now, but also make sure to pay attention in class.
All right, thank you. So the next question is PSAT a good reflection of SAT? Abdullah, do you want to take this question?
Yeah, a PSAT is a very good reflection of your SAT score. My very first PSAT, I got like a 1000 or like a 10,000, sorry, or wait, 1000, sorry. And so that gave me a benchmark and told me I'm not very good at the SAT, so I had to work a lot, and alhamdulillah, I was able to get up to a 1490 from there, which is a big improvement. But yeah, it correlates really well with your SAT score.
All right, and a similar question I saw is PSAT different from SAT? So yes, it is. And basically it's like a pre-SAT. So many schools offer it from 8th grade, but usually most schools are required, or most schools usually do give it junior year, so 11th grade of high school. But like for example, our school started giving it from 8th grade. So like Abdullah said, that was his first score in 8th grade. And then we kept taking one, 9th grade, 10th grade, and then junior year is when it like mattered in some sense. But yeah, it is a good reflection of your SAT score and how much you need to practice for SAT. And it is a different test, which is, and you can't sign up for it personally, like this, your school has to provide it. So another question is, what year are you required to take the PSAT? Like I said, like it really depends on your school, but usually they do provide it by junior year. Okay, next question. Is it true that you need a good PSAT score in order to get scholarships? Asiya, can you take this one?
I wouldn't say you need it, but it definitely helps. So PSAT is what qualifies you for national merit. And so I got national merit commended, and it didn't give any scholarships immediately, but I got to put it on my college applications. And so I think that was like a big factor in some of the scholarships I got, because I did get scholarships from a few colleges. So I think that helped. And WAFIQAH got national merit semifinalist, which I think qualifies for more scholarships. So
Yes. So the next question is, what is a good score on PSAT? So the score range for PSAT is up to 1520. So I can't really give you a benchmark of what's a good score, but you can look online, and the closer to 1520 it is, the better. The next question, is there a limit to how many times you can take SAT? Also, can colleges see how often you took the SAT? All right. Abdullah, can you take this question?
Yeah, so there's no limit to how many times you can take the SAT. You can take it as long as you think you're going to improve, and as long as you're not burnt out and you just think there's no more room for improvement. Colleges don't necessarily have to see how many times you take the SAT. You submit the scores that you want to submit. So I did not submit any of my first 3 scores. I only submitted my last 2, which was a 1480 and a 1490. And you can do the same. So if you have only one good score, you can submit that only one good score. And if you have a couple scores you want to show them, then you can do that as well.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, next question. Is there a prerequisite to take the SAT, ACT? Osman, please take this one.
No, there's not a prerequisite to take the SAT. You could take it whenever you want. Like at any point during any year, you can take it. There's not like application. There's an application process, but it's not something like, oh, did you do this yet? Did you take this class yet? No, it's just you can take it whenever.
And going off of that, Osman, what year should you first take the SAT?
I mean, if you want to take it earlier into your high school year, like 9th, 10th grade, I guess that's fine. But like taking it in junior year would be optimal, because then you've already completed all the courses that the SAT covers, like geometry, algebra, and algebra 2, ideally. So then you're completely prepared for the SAT course-wise. So you won't have to do any additional studying on new material on your own.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to add is that I suggest taking your first SAT like fall of junior year, so that you have a good understanding of what like score you would get and like what score you got, and then taking some time to study over like winter and spring, and then take the next test sometime in the spring. And also another point I want to bring up is that if you do take it in like 8th or 9th grade, I believe colleges don't accept it unless it was taken like recently. So I don't know how recent, but there is some year like cut off that, so you do have to take the test somewhat recently, but I'm not sure like how recent it is in terms of years. So the next question is the PSAT considered easier than the SAT? So simply answered, yes, it is. It is the pre-version. So it is the easier version of the SAT, and it also has less math content, I believe. Like less difficult math content. Okay, next question. How many times should you take the SAT and know when to stop? Asya, can you take this question, please?
Yeah, I would say take the SAT as many times as you need to get the score you want. So if you are applying for a college and that college's like average SAT is a certain amount and you really want to get into that college, maybe take it that amount to get around that score. If you take it once and you get like a really high score and you don't want to take it, or you don't have to take it again. You can take it as many times as you want, like I said, but just whatever your personal goal is and whatever you think you need for your goals, stop then. And there's no like certain amount of times you need to take it.
Okay, next question. So when do you have to submit SAT scores grade-wise? I'm not sure what that means, but try submitting, like for college, I believe you do have to submit your SAT scores with the Common App or like other college applications. So do you want to go further in detail, Abdullah?
Yeah, I think I guess so. You want to have your SAT scores ready for your college application, essentially. So that means probably taking the test anytime before November of 12th grade year, and ideally you want to be done with it junior year, summer, or something like that. So you have those SAT tests ready to go and ready to submit in your college application and resume.
All right, next question. Is the beginning of junior year too late to start studying for SAT? Osman, what do you think?
It's never too late. Never say never, because like you still have what, like a year and a half until your last SAT at that point, and in a year and a half you can do anything. You could like turn into a genius in a year and a half, which is so. It's never too late to start studying. It could be the day before the SAT, and you don't tell yourself it's too late to start studying. It could be like the hour of the SAT. Just go over your routine. You know, it's never too late.
Okay, but we don't recommend cramming. And another thing I want to add is that beginning of your junior year is completely fine. And like I said, if you take your first test a junior year fall, you should be completely fine. But I do recommend trying to finish everything before the beginning of senior year, because college applications can get hectic and you don't want to have SAT on top of that as well. Okay, next question. Is Khan Academy SAT practice test similar in difficulty to the actual test? Yes, it is. It is exactly what College Board test makers that make the official test that you go and take, that those same test makers made these official practice tests as well as these official practice questions that Khan Academy has. Like if you go to their Khan Academy SAT practice website, you will see that it says official College Board questions, and that is true. So like this is your best bet for the level of difficulty or the level of like question that the College Board asks. Okay, next question. Where can you find SAT score range for each college? Can you please take this one, Abdullah?
You can search up the SAT score range. So you can, if you search up SAT score range percentile breakdown, you can just find out which score matches with which percentile. And then if you go further in depth, you can look at the specific college you want to apply to. So say, for example, Harvard or something like that. You can see the average score range there, and then maybe you want to aim for that average or higher.
All right, next question. Is it good to give PSAT in 8th, 9th, 10th grade? Is a good thing to prepare for the SAT? Asya, can you please take this one?
So I think you're asking, is the PSAT a good way to prepare for SAT? And I would say, yeah, like it's similar concepts, similar material, so it is a good way to prepare. But the SAT is a bit harder, like I said. So don't just fully base your SAT prediction off of, I got a good score in the PSAT, you know, you still have to study and improve on what you missed. But it definitely does help. It's similar concepts, so taking it definitely does help.
Okay. So those are all the questions that I see for now. So if anyone else has any questions, please put in the chat. Otherwise, we'll give you about a minute. Okay, so there is another question. Whenever a regular class is going on, are there any hints to know if it's related to the SAT? What do you think, Osman?
I mean, yeah. Basically, if it's a class and it's math or reading, then it's probably related to the SAT. So like everything you do, especially math-wise, everything you do is basically related to the SAT in some form. Like just taking normal classes, it all builds your foundation to become a better person at math. And for reading, like everything you do is like learning grammar rules, learning how to analyze passages. They're all useful in the SAT. So basically, in general, math for reading classes, they're all like related to the SAT in some form.
Okay, so that is all the questions we see. So Jazakallah khairan for listening to our workshop. I hope all the information was informative and helpful. And I hope good luck on your future SAT, ACT studying and test taking. Inshallah, you'll do great. Would Osman, Asi, would you guys like to say something?
Try your best.
Yes.
Good luck. Inshallah, you guys will do good. You got this.
All right. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.